but the best for last, I think. My name is Elisa Gums. I'm the executive managing editor of Black Enterprise. And I might be a little bit biased, but SistersInc is always my favorite session at the Entrepreneur Summit because the women are always amazing. So welcome to SistersInc, Handling Our Business. We have 3 women here, some of whom Black Enterprise has been covering for a very long time. They all have amazing stories. They're all successful entrepreneurs. So please help me welcome the founder and CEO of healthy hair company, Mael Organics, Monique Rodriguez.
Thank you.
The founder and CEO of Adina Bio and Companies, which owns IHOP franchises in 3 cities in New Jersey, a $250 million real estate portfolio, and a brand new fast casual soul food restaurant concept called Cornbread. Yes, I know. Apparently Cornbread's a hit. Adina Bio. And also the founder and CEO of Walker's Legacy, a global platform for multicultural women who are professional or entrepreneurial, Natalie Madeira Cofield. So at our Women of Power Summit, we had a session called Every Woman Has a Story. And I'd like to start with each of you guys telling your own personal stories of how you came to be an entrepreneur.
I guess I'll go first.
Sure.
So actually I started Mael Organics 4 years ago. We just made our 4-year anniversary this past May. And I started the company just for my love for beauty and hair. And I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur ever since I was a little girl. Like I've always envisioned myself as a little girl being a businesswoman, walking around with a little briefcase. However, my dreams kind of got deterred because, I came from a family where it was survival mode. Like my mom, she raised me to go to school, go to college, and you work your job, you get your 9-to-5 job, and you work that job until it's time for you to retire. And then when you're 65, you enjoy life. So that's the environment that I came from, and that was always instilled in my head. So my mom always told me that you gotta go to nursing school, you gotta become a nurse because it's recession proof, you'll always have a job. And when I graduated high school, it was 2001, so that's when the economy went down. And I was like, well, I don't have anything else to do, I'm just gonna go to nursing school because that's what my mom told me to do. I wanted to be a good kid, make her happy, and walked across the stage, and I started my nursing career in 2006, and I was 21, 22, and when I started on the nursing floor, I started in labor and delivery, and I remember telling myself, okay, this is great, but this is not something that I can see myself doing for the rest of my life. Even though it was a great career, it wasn't a career that I chose for myself. It was something that my mom chose for me, and I was living her dream and trying to make her happy versus trying to make myself happy, because it was her dream to become a nurse, but for whatever reason, she wasn't able to accomplish that, so she pushed her dream off on me. And even though I had my own dreams, I decided to leave my dreams to the wayside and follow my mom's dreams. And also because I didn't come from a family of entrepreneurs, I didn't see that growing up, so I was never exposed to that. So even though I wasn't exposed to that, I still had this vision. So that's how I know that vision came from God, because if nothing is around you showing women in business, like where does that come from? So it had to come from God. I knew it was something that I've always wanted to do. So I did nursing for 8.5 years, and I just became fed up. My last job was actually at an entrepreneur company. It was at a home health agency, and it was ran by 2 guys that came from the tech world. They came from like computers and tech or whatever. And they decided to start this home health agency, and it was built off of nursing. And I was amazed at that because my last position with them I was a supervisor. I was promoted to be a supervisor. And I got to see like the insides of like running a business. And I thought to myself, well, if these 2 guys can start this $1 billion home health company with no experience, they know nothing about nursing, but what they did was they hired people that were smarter than them to build their business, which was the nurses, right? So, they built their company off of our backs, and I was just like, what am I doing here? You know, I actually went through a tragic situation of my own in 2013 where, you know, I really had to do some soul searching, and it was like a wake-up call. And I wanted to, it was at a position where I could have lost my life. I was actually pregnant with my son, and unfortunately he passed away due to a uterine rupture. It was a pregnancy complication, and so he lost his life, and I could have lost my life as well too. So that was like, you know, I sat and thought, like, if I die, like, I'm gonna die not living my dreams and not walking in my calling, because I didn't feel that nursing was what I was called to do. So I decided to take action and have faith and take that painful situation and turn it into a triumph and have victory from it, as bad as it may sound. But that painful situation is how I found my purpose, and I felt that my purpose was to inspire others to follow their dreams and to just step out on faith, because that's exactly what I did. I had no business experience, I had no business background, no marketing degree, but I decided that I wanted to follow my dream and put my destiny into my own hands and continue to live a fulfilled life and to make myself happy, because, you know, we only get one shot at this thing called life, right? So it's best that you live your life and you live it fulfilled, because you only get one shot at it and you have to follow your dreams and do what makes you happy. So I started my Yale in 2014, and 4 years later I'm here.
Yeah. Adina, I know living your dream is a big part of your story also.
Yeah. I think for me, my journey is, obviously I started in Africa. I started in a very small village where running water wasn't even an option. And my grandmother used to tell me this story, and, you know, it was a funny story. My grandmother always said, you know, you was born a survivor. And I would always say, she said, let me tell you, my mother got pregnant for me at the age of 15, 14 in Africa as a young girl. I can only imagine what that experience must have been for her. And she asked her parents to let her have an abortion. And my grandmother said, no, this is your second abortion. You're only 15. We're going to let you keep this baby. So my grandmother would tell me the story that my mother tried to self-abort, and she would try to self-abort. So 9 months later, my mother thinks she was going to have a still baby. My grandmother said I came out the healthiest baby they ever seen. And just bundling, you know. And my grandmother always said, you're a survivor. So my grandmother kept me, took my mother back to school, and I was with my grandmother since I was born in the marketplace of Africa. And if anybody ever been to Africa, do go to the marketplace. You will see these amazing women that have never been to college, but can transact business with you on the highest level. So at age of 7, 9, I was in the marketplace with my grandmother. I was counting the money, she was selling, I was the bank, I was counting the money, and I was just very, very business minded. And my grandmother used to say, of all the grandkids, if I have we used to sell we used to sell bread in my village, and my grandmother used to rent houses. So here I am today selling pancakes and doing real estate development. So, you know, everyone do pick up that book by Malcolm Gladwell, you know, The Outlier. It tells you, you know, it just made sense to do what I'm doing today. So my grandmother and I was in this really intense business. She would sell them, she would make the bread, I would sell it, and if the bread don't sell by the end of the day, I'm discounting. I'm like, I'm going to the buses that are leaving. Okay, it was a quarter, I'll give it to you for 15 cents, just take it. And at the age of 9, a war broke in my country, in Liberia. Everyone knows that. Well, maybe not. So one night, I'm a happy little girl. My grandmother woke me up in the middle of the night. Let's go, let's go, let's go. The soldiers are coming. I remember I had on the t-shirt and the underwear. Me and my grandmother and my cousins, we got on this journey on foot. We walked. We walked to the neighboring country of Sierra Leone. And when we got to Sierra Leone in the refugee camp, me and my cousin decided that it was We didn't like the food that it was giving or selling to us in the refugee camps. So we decided, why don't we start our own business? Again, going back to Liberia and getting the vegetables that we're used to and bringing it in the camp and selling it to people. Again, why would we do that? I don't know. So me and my cousin would track back to Liberia and would come, would sell it. And next thing I look, one day coming from Liberia, my father came and said, where have you guys been? We're looking for you guys. They're like, oh, Adina, you got to go to the United States. Your father is here to rescue you. I'm like, rescue me? I have a market to sell, you know? So, you know, we tried it, you know, through the different countries. I ended up in Newark, New Jersey. And I got there when I was 13 years old. And I've been an entrepreneur ever since. Because, again, I get here in the United States. And at the age of 13, I started my own babysitting company. Again, that just kind of followed me naturally. I went to high school. I had my own babysitting company. Went to college. And again, in college, I had like 5 jobs. And I had a salon in my dorm called Chocolate City. So and I would sew hair. I would sew weave. You know, I would braid, because in Africa, I took the skills of braiding hair. So I would braid and sew hair. And I graduated college with like $21,000 in my bank account. Wow. And I always say to people, I say, you know, one thing I do say about what I do is the ability to just work. I call myself a natural workaholic because I enjoy everything I do. So, you know, naturally, when I came out of college, I bought my first 3-family house in Irvington, stay in the basement. I rent out the first 3 levels, and I eventually had to go to the first floor because I was trying to get lonely in the basement. I made up in the first floor and rented out the 2 floors and started my real estate portfolio right there. Because I was working at a bank, I was able to save my money, and I just started buying real estate property. I started from a 3-family, 4-family, and now I'm just opening the first 114-unit development in Irvington. Wow. Yeah. And as far as the IHOPs go, I'm from Irvington, and I wanted to eat at IHOP. I love IHOP from college, and the place I was living didn't have no IHOP. And I remember writing the...
So he said, let me just buy one.
I'm like, what do you mean? There's no IHOP here? I wrote a letter to the mayor, and long story short, I ended up owning an IHOP when I had no intention of ever being an IHOP owner. And I think for me, how did I become doing? I think I was born into this. To answer your question, yes. I was born into
this. And Natalie, entrepreneurship started early for you too.
It did, actually. And I'll be honest and say being here is such an honor for me, because when I tell my story, I will let you know that there were 2 really influential things that happened to me to inspire my entrepreneurial journey. One was my mom, and the other was Black Enterprise. And hear how those 2 things kind of connect. So I grew up working 3 jobs when I was in high school, and one of those was working on a mail assembly room line at a company that was a BE 100 firm that my mom worked at. She was an entrepreneur at this organization, and ever since I was really, really young, I would always have to read her business plans. And I hated reading my mom's business plans. But she was building new lines of business within the organization, and she was just like you. She was turned on by the science and the sport of business. That's what I think it is, right? It's a sport. And I remember being young and being in high school and walking through the halls of this company and seeing on the entrance in plaques were these Black Enterprise cutouts of the BE 100 list. And it was because this organization was a Black Enterprise 100 firm. And the CEO was a Black man, and I would see him coming in and coming out, my mom having meetings with him. And I was 13, 14, and I knew words like procurement, you know? And it was because I was making flyers and promotional material for them. Mommy, what is procurement? And, you know, I went through my collegial experience at Howard, and there was a moment where Black Enterprise, again, changed my life, changed the course of my life. There was a moment where at Howard I wanted to go to NYU. And it was because I didn't think that Howard at that time had the diversity that I was looking for. And I want to say at that time because I want to make sure you put a pin in that. And I remember being at my house and looking at a Black Enterprise magazine and seeing one of my classmates named Sterling. And he was from Chicago, got into Harvard, got into Howard. And there was an advertisement, and it said, Howard University, Leadership for a Global Community. And also in the pages of that Black Enterprise was a man named Emerson Fullwood, who used to work at Xerox, and he was a family friend. And I just felt like, wow, this is just so close to me. Here we are, Black Enterprise, again, being so close to me. And I thought, I can't leave Howard. I gotta stay at Howard, because Howard is leadership for a global community. And I actually turned down, I'm not gonna lie, I turned down a full scholarship to go to NYU that I received my sophomore year. I ended up becoming a Gates Millennium Scholars in the inaugural cohort of that, and I stayed at Howard, went through my experience as a scholar there, and graduated with honors. I started my first company at 26 years old. My first company was a consulting firm. My first client was the CBCF, and I wrote a book for them and did some productions for them. And I pledged for my first client, meaning they didn't know me from Adam, but I knew who I was. And I would go meet with them, and they just kept bringing me around because I was this young woman. And I said, let me just do this for you all for free for a few. And then I know that this money is going to appear because the price isn't going to change. And I felt like I had to let them know who I was and what I could do, because so much of this experience in life is people taking bets on you, right? And they want to know that you'll take a bet on yourself. And I did that for them, and I went on to have all these other clients and UNCF and just others. And then I was brought to Austin to be the CEO of the Greater Austin Black Chamber of Commerce. And Black Enterprise showed up for me there again. And what started as me seeing these plaques on the wall when I was young and being inspired by the entrepreneurs that I would read about in the pages of this magazine, I said to myself at 12 and 13, I want to be on the cover of that magazine. So now here I am in Austin, transforming a dying Chamber of Commerce into a beacon that was put on CNN and, most notably to me, on the cover of Black Enterprise.
Yeah. Awesome.
And it was during that time that I had my own company, NMC Consulting Group, that I would sit down and I would meet with people. People asked me how I started Walker's Legacy. And it was really because at that time, being 26 years old, living in DC, as a young woman, I would constantly go to meetings, and literally, I was not being taken seriously. We're going through the Me Too phenomenon right now, and I have plenty of Me Too stories to share with you. And I came home one day, and I was talking to my friend, and I was crying to him, and I was like, why does this keep happening to me? And he said, Natalie, who is your female mentor? And I didn't have one. And so that's when I started reading biographies of women that I wanted to be like, in much the same way that I would read through the pages of Black Enterprise. And Alexis Herman and Madam C.J. Walker. And I said to myself, if I could do anything like what she's done and what she did during the time in which she did it, and she could go through that, then I could go through this. And I said, where is the legacy of her work as it relates to her being a boss, entrepreneur, and a change agent around sales structures and sales strategies for companies, and bringing women together to empower them through entrepreneurship? And that is actually where Walker's Legacy came in. And it was at my hair salon, and I'm almost done, that I started this story. And the way God works, as we talked about God, was that my hairdresser said to me, you need to meet a woman named Alelia Bundles. And I said, well, who's that? She said, that's Madam C.J. Walker's great-great-granddaughter. So I reached out to Alelia. But the owner of this salon was an 80-year-old woman, and she was a graduate of the Madam C.J. Walker Beauty & Co. school in Washington, D.C. And so now here we are, years later, and Walker's Legacy is empowering women around the world so that women don't have to have the kind of experiences that I had to go through with all the Me Too experiences, because we're not connected to each other. We're not supporting each other. We're not networking with each other. It's an honor for me to be on stage with you. I told her that. Last year, this time, I was talking about her outside of an ice cream shop in Georgetown to one of my friends. And we had just written a story about her for Walker's Legacy. And here's Black Enterprise again, presenting the opportunity for me. So thank you, Black Enterprise.
Natalie, you mentioned Me Too, and we're going to get back to Me Too definitely, but I want to stick with some of the other challenges, because in SistersInc we always want to talk specifically to the challenges of being Black and a woman in business, and how you guys have overcome them. So any of you who wants to jump in and talk about, you know, the specific challenges that you have faced in your entrepreneurial journey.
Go. Anybody wants to go? You want to go first? Okay. Back on the mic. My biggest challenges as a woman, a Black woman, a young woman, have been a couple-fold. One, as I mentioned, I think times have changed a bit, but when I first started my first company, entrepreneurship was not a sexy, hot thing for anybody to do. And it was almost synonymous with unemployment. It's like, oh, you're an entrepreneur? Oh, you just really ain't got no job.
You ain't got no job.
And now I think, because people are becoming entrepreneurs so rapidly, right, that stigma is changing. But I went through a lot of having to teach and talk to people about what being an entrepreneur really means, and honestly what value I was providing, because they didn't think that it was possible for me to be doing these things. Second is fear. I think all of us in some capacity go through a feeling of imposter syndrome. I still go through that sometimes, even though I know I don't have to, right? And it's because I know that we always have to work so much harder to get so much less than everyone else does. And it just bothers me so much. And then so when we're in the room, sometimes it almost challenges you to second guess yourself, as though you're not as good as that person because you've had to do all this extra work, you know? It's this extra tax that we feel. So I think the imposter syndrome is also something that a lot of Black women feel when they're in places and spaces that are not primarily us. And you know, the last couple of things are, I don't think that we spend enough time as women connecting with each other. I swear that I pray one day that a woman sits on stage and says that Walker's Legacy did for her what Black Enterprise did for me.
Yes.
That's because we need to be creating stories, engagement, and community to support each other. And I don't think that we do that enough. We can talk about access to capital, and those are real issues, but then there are systematic things that we need to address together through sisterhood and through sharing, and I think that is really, really important.
I also think for me, like all parts of my journey have always been really powerful women, Black women, that have kind of taken me over the hump. You know, when I first applied to open my very first IHOP, I think I was this 23-year-old something girl that had a net worth of over whatever their crazy requirements are. I met it and I beat it, and they turned me down. IHOP said no to me twice. And when they said no to me the second time, I picked up the phone, because no one ever says no to Adina, and she takes I just don't take no. And I picked up the phone and I called IHOP. I needed to speak to someone as to why was I getting this no. And for me, I'm always the glass half full kind of personality. Anyone that know me, I'm extremely optimistic even when I have no reason to be. So when I picked up the phone and the person at the other end name was Nicole, she is the only Black female at the time. I want to say that probably worked at IHOP at the time. And thankfully for me, she picked up the phone. And I said to her, I said, you know, my name is Adina, like you should know Adina. That's how I sounded that day. She was like, your name is Adina. Okay, how can I help you? And I remember saying to her, listen, I just applied to open an IHOP. And she said, well, hold on, let me pull your file. She's like, okay, you don't have a restaurant experience. We're just not going to approve you. You don't. I said, well, wait a minute. I worked at McDonald's when I was 13 years old. Oh. She said, seriously, you don't have the restaurant experience that we need. That was supposed to be a 2-minute conversation. I kept her on the phone for 45 minutes. At the end of that phone call, she was so convinced of what I was trying to do. I was trying to bring an IHOP into this impoverished community that hadn't had a decent restaurant to eat. And I said to her that every community deserves quality services. And I'm not going to wait for someone else to come and do it for my community. I want to do that. And I need you guys to be a partner with me to do this. Now, whatever I need to do, if you need me to get a job tomorrow at an IHOP working as a server, I'm willing to do that. But I need someone that can open that door for me. And she said, okay, I'll open the door, but when you walk in, you're literally on your own. And she allowed me a conference call with their board, and I think I was the longest conversation I've ever had, but it was only a 15-minute conversation. It was a board of 8 people. I think it was 7 white men and 1 woman. That's who I had to convince to open an IHOP in Irvington, New Jersey. It was not an easy task, but I did it. And when we got approval, they didn't believe that it was going to be successful. 3 years into it, my IHOP was the fastest growing IHOP in the whole Northeast. We had the largest comp sales known in the whole Northeast. And for me, that was validation. It wasn't just done for Adina. Yes, I was the person behind it, but I wanted to open the door for so many more Adinas that was going to pick up their phone and had to have that conversation with Nicole. She will have the confidence to say, yes, I can back you because you're going to have my back. You're going to do what you need to do. So for me, I've had some really experience with Black women, hence my grandmother, and I have grown to this stature because of really Black women supporting me. And been there for me when there were times, It has really been a love affair with me and Black women, and I just really say that I embrace being Black because I bring something to the table that quite often, I relish this. I'm always in a space where I'm either the only Black person in the room, or I'm probably the only Black woman that owns 3 IHOP in the whole Northeast. Yeah. So I relish this when I'm in a room like this. I just want to hug everybody.
We can arrange that after the session. Monique, you transitioned into entrepreneurship, and so you were coming in, as a new entrepreneur and as a Black woman. And what were some of the struggles you faced?
Yeah, so I would say I wish I had those experiences because for me coming into this entrepreneur space, I didn't have support. Like I said, I wasn't surrounded by other women entrepreneurs, especially Black women that I can admire or look up to. So I had to do a lot of research myself. And I went to social media and I read books like Black Enterprises just to find a mentor in my head, like an invisible mentor. So I would read about different women and get inspired by their stories to inspire myself and to motivate me. So I didn't get that type of support. And it's very hard to go to another woman and say, can you give me some business advice? Like, what are the steps to start a business? Like, I didn't have that. So I had to do a lot of research. I had to do a lot of Google, reading a lot of books and trying to self-educate myself because I didn't have anyone to go to. But I don't fault anybody because, at the end of the day, I felt that it was God telling me that I had to put action to faith, and I had to put the work behind what I was trying to do, and I was even able to prove to myself that I can do it because for so long I had fear and doubt telling me that, well, you don't have any business experience, you don't have any entrepreneurial experience, so how can you start this business? You're a nurse, you know how to take a blood pressure, you know how to start an IV, I know how to deliver a baby. So starting a business, something as simple as getting an LLC, I didn't know how to do that. I had to research that. And another challenge that I face even now is being a Black-owned business in this hair care industry. This is an industry that we created, right? Like we built this industry off of our needs for our hair. And me being a small business, you know, you have these bigger giants like the P&Gs of the world, the Pantenes, the L'Oreals, that have no clue about how to take care of black hair, but they can speak to us and they can put a black face on an ad and come and take our share of what we're building. And sometimes I wish that, you know, I just want us as black consumers to get smart and to know that, you know, just because they put a black face on that ad, there are not black people behind that brand, you know, and it's I won't say frustrating, but it's a challenge because I know that like this is something that I'm really passionate about. You know, when we go and formulate products and we go back and we brainstorm on like what's the next product to create, like I talk to my consumers, like I want to know what your needs are, what your wants are for your hair, and I also use my own experience because we all have the same struggles with our hair care, right? And we all want the same thing. We want manageable hair, we want moisturized hair, you know. So like I really take pride in what I do, and to see a bigger company that just because they have bigger dollars than, you know, a Mael to come in and take our space of what we built, and they don't know anything about African American hair care or multicultural hair, you know, that can be a challenge. But I think that as long as we continue to stick together as black women, and even us as brands, black-owned brands, if we continue to stick together, you know, we can kick the P&Gs out and not let them in our space because this is something that we built. So.
If you were with us this morning, you saw we had a fireside chat with Janice Bryant-Howroyd, who owns the second largest black-owned company in the country, a multi-billion-dollar company. And she said something this morning that really touched a nerve with me, which was that if she could go back and do something different, what she would do is forgive herself for being a smart black woman sooner. And so I wanted to ask you guys if that resonates with you as well, if it was challenging for you to sort of find your center ground in your confidence as a black woman.
You go ahead.
Okay, so I would say definitely for me, it took me a while to become confident in who I am because for so long, not being told that you're smart and maybe that you're just pretty, but not necessarily smart, like, you know, that it's like, okay, well, I'm just a pretty face, like I have no intelligence. So it took me a while to build up that confidence to know that I can do it. And, you know, and that's why, you know, I have 2 girls now, and I really think that it starts from being a kid. And, you know, not to take anything away from my mom. She was a great mom. She did what she knew, what was best. And one of the things that I wish that she would have done that I do now differently with my kids is that I wish that she would have told me as a child, like, you can do anything. You can do anything that you put your mind to. Like, anytime that my kids come to me with an idea, my 8-year-old, she came to me and I forgot what she said she wanted to be. I forgot, but whatever it was, I told her, I said, you can do whatever it is that you want to do. And sometimes it takes instilling that confidence in your children at a very young age. And because that didn't happen to me as a child growing up with my mom, I want to be able to break that cycle and instill values and instill that confidence in my kids to know that you can do anything that you put your mind to. And I tell my kids, like, you're beautiful. You're not only beautiful, but you're smart. And I asked my oldest daughter, I have a 12-year-old too, and I asked her when we were in the car riding, and I said, do you think you're all that? And she answered me, and she was like, no. And I was like, why not? You should think that you're all that. Like, you're all that in a bag of chips. Because I want not for her to be conceited or arrogant, but just to be confident and to know that she can do all things through Christ that strengthens her. And, you know, I have my kids, they're on activities, and I think that helps build up their confidence. So I think that it all starts from instilling those values in your kids. So if you have kids, you know, make sure that you're always telling them you're beautiful, you're smart, you're intelligent, because that sticks with them. And that's just something that I wish that my mom would have done to me. And I think that I probably would have gained my confidence level a little earlier in life rather than later.
Oh, I think for me, it's always come back to, I always go back to you have to give more than you take. And I'm always looking to always say to myself, even with my staff, my team, give more than you're taking. Even when you don't have it to give. Make people understand, if I had it, I would give you all I have. And I think for me, that's been my guiding strength. I've always been in a space where I was either doing something I felt was helping people, i.e. helping my community, or I was always the one building other girls, you know. I remember, you know, as a young girl coming into this, I just always been very confident in myself. I've always known what I wanted to do, and I've always been very headfast. And now I think I look back, girls around me benefited from that. I mean, when I was in college, I was the president of Nubian Ladies Making Vital Progress. So I think from a very early age, I've always knew that my gift came in helping. As long as I was working, I felt like I was working, like I'm a workaholic, but it has to be towards a greater goal. So I think for me, once I'm on that path of giving more than I'm actually taking, it's all well with my soul. Yeah.
I was trying to think, you know, about how to answer this question, and if I could, spin it a little bit. To my experience has been that I've oftentimes been the leader, right? And I think when you are always the leader, or often the leader, asking for help can be really difficult. And I've led company. I've been a CEO for 12 years now. I've led companies, I've led teams, I've led groups, I've led organizations, associations, and you know, I think of asking for help with the same type of way that you would ask for a prayer, right? But I think the way people respond to ask for help is not always the same. So if someone asked you to pray for them, you would say, sure, like what do you need the prayer for? But when you say you need help, people are saying, oh girl, I thought you had all that together. I thought I would never think that you even needed help. And the truth of the matter is what happens then is it causes people to put a wall up around how they feel that they can be their true, authentic self and share with you that they need help. You understand what I'm saying? And so asking for help is an act of strength, not an act of vulnerability or weakness. It's an identification that there are things that you still need assistance with. And this past year for me has been a year of the ask. It's been a year of me asking people to help that I never would have asked to help me before. I might have been either too afraid or too ego-centered to ask them for help, right? I don't want to ask her for help because she might think I don't have it going on. How many of people have been like that before? And I felt like I was blocking my blessings with that. But just as I'm asking them for help, I often close all of my conversations with, how can I help you? Is there anything that I can do to be of assistance for you? Do you have an ask, right? And so it puts back into the universe, to her point, what you're taking from it, which is to always be giving as you're receiving. And so for me, I think that's important. The other thing that came up in the Janice conversation that struck a chord with me was what does success look like circumstance. And we talked a little bit about the tax of being successful and what it means to look like you're successful. We got to get our hair done. We got to get our nails done. We got to have the right shoes. Got to have the right outfit. And if you don't have that stuff, then you must not be successful. And as women, it costs us time. It costs us energy. It costs us money to put up this continued facade of what success looks like. Meanwhile, we continue to keep seeing entrepreneur after entrepreneur struggling with the feelings of isolation, struggling with the disappointment, continued disappointment of hearing no all the time. I mean, we are perseverant people. We're going to rise above, but no one can lie to you and tell you that it don't hurt when you hear no. You know what I'm saying? It's just about how you rechannel that energy. And so I think just as much as we're talking about not being comfortable being that super smart, super educated black woman, I think it's also important for us to be comfortable being that woman who needs to ask for help, knowing what our vulnerable spaces are, and proclaiming them and the act on that as a strength and not a weakness.
Yes. We're going to open the floor up for questions. So if people have questions, then they can start lining up over there. Wait. I got one more question for them while people are lining up. Recently, Ohio State Representative Amelia Sykes made news because she was the one who was stopped by security because she didn't look like a legislator. And I'm sure that you all have had incidents where someone felt you didn't look like the CEO. If you want to share any of those and how you overcome that, because that could be like a daily basis kind of thing for some of us. And so, yeah.
I mean, so I used to manage international relations on all the African diasporic countries for Austin. And I would go, when I went to Brazil, which I had to fight for, when I went to Brazil, I had meetings with CEOs of various organizations. And I remember, quite frankly, the CEO of this association for Sao Paulo came into the meeting with his assistant, who was a young woman who looked about my age. And he said, "We'll wait to start to when the CEO gets here." And I said, "Oh, she's here. We can get started, And it was one of the first times that he had been across the table from his counterpart, and the person was a woman. Or things like I said, I'll be in sweats and a hoodie, and I'll be talking to people, and their responses will be more from the perspective of assistance. But the reality is that I like to move in that space sometimes. When people ask me what I do, I say I work with an organization named X. And they'll start talking to me, and they'll say, way into the conversation, "Well, what do you do with them?" And I say, "I founded the organization." I don't want that to be all up in the mix of what we're talking about at the beginning, so now we have a bias in how we're communicating. I want you to communicate, And I had one woman in a bathroom say something about one of our programs, and I took it as good feedback, and then she saw me get on stage, and afterwards she said, "Oh my God, I didn't even realize that you..." I said, "No, I appreciate your candor." You know what I mean? So good.
I think for me, it's training people. Again, you have to train people. Just like a lot of stuff is generational for people. I had someone that came to one of my buildings. My neighbor, he had just owned a building adjacent to me, and he was looking for the owner. And I was like, "Yes." 3 times in the conversation, he asked me, "I'm looking for the owner." And I had to stop him. I said, "I'm going to tell you the last time, I am the owner." But I think for me, there is no label in what I do. Sometimes you will go in my restaurant, I am bussing tables. That you will go in my restaurant, I am cleaning the bathroom. Because I think for me, it's important for me to be in that space of just doing what I need to do. I don't want to be too tied down in carrying the title of CEO. For me, that means so much more to someone else. It doesn't mean anything to me if I'm not able to do my work. I want to be able to do my work and lead my people. Let that be what I'm judged on versus all of this facade. I just enjoy my work. And if that happened to be a CEO of a company, that's great. But I want to be able to enjoy my work.
Okay. Did you want to answer, or do you want me to go to the question?
It doesn't matter. Oh, I was just going to say, I actually agree. And I'm kind of the same way. I'm not really hung up on titles. And I get, with me being the face of the brand, so when people encounter me, they pretty much already know that I'm the CEO because my face is everywhere. But for those, like when I'm out, in sweats and jogging pants or whatever, I'm kind of used to it because even when I worked as a nurse, they didn't think that they're like, "You're too young to be my nurse." So, I'm used to it, and I never get hung up on titles because I enjoy what I'm doing. So CEO or not, I'll get back there and pack boxes if I have to. So it doesn't matter if people underestimate me. I actually like when people underestimate me. So,
Okay. Ramon?
Alyssa, with your permission, may I just take 2 minutes to tell a story about Adina's IHOP, which I'm a customer of?
Yeah.
May I? So out of all the people we met at Black Enterprise, Don Peebles, T.I., President, everybody, the only person I wanted to meet and take a selfie with was this young lady right here in the middle. So I'll be very brief. And thank you, Alyssa. I'll be very brief. But it's important to get the context. All you ladies are amazing. Me and my wife work, our daughter, and we go to church in Newark, New Jersey. It's a very gritty, urban neighborhood. We ate in IHOP in Newark, New Jersey years ago. I told my wife I will never come back to this IHOP again. The staff are rude, insolent, disrespectful, and terrible, and the decor is filthy. A year ago, give or take, we were hungry, and there's a big sign, new management. I'm like, yeah, okay, new management, so what? I'm kid you not. We went, I don't know why I cry, we went to the IHOP. The decor was changed. As I walked in the door, there's two ladies in there, and they said, a big smile, how can we help you? Thanks for coming to IHOP. The staff are different. Everything's changed. I said, who's the owner? I look on it, and I see Adina. I start freaking out. We just met only a couple hours ago. Then I went to Patterson. I took my daughter, got her first one of her jobs at Quick Check. She don't want to get money from dad. She wants to be her own girl. She wants to work at Quick Check and be a cashier. In Patterson, I went to the IHOP. I assumed it was going to be terrible. Because I like pancakes, bacon, and eggs, by the way. And I'll be brief, 10 more seconds. Thank you, Alyssa. I went to Patterson. I called them. I could hear the smile of the staff because I need help with parking, walking me verbally to the garage how to park. Then I walk in and say, I just want to say, all of you are legit. I just know, I don't even know her, but I know her staff. They are legit amazing, and you are transforming lives. And I had to share it.
Thank you.
My makeup up. What just happened was he looked up at that picture and saw this black woman and got goosebumps when he saw it. That's what happened.
Hello, ladies, and short people problems, sorry. I apologize if you touched on this before. I walked in a little bit late. So as Black women in business, not only as Alyssa touched on, the fact that you're not only Black, you're women in business as well. With the most recent suicides, a lot of people equate money with happiness. What would be, I guess, advice that you would give, because we are the strong Black woman. We don't show emotion, we take everything in, we already know how to handle it, and you touched on it as well when you were saying, oh girl, I thought you handled that, I thought you had that. So what kind of advice would you give to us as women to just take some time out and to not try to conquer it all, or to not break down in the midst of it? And even if it's something, whatever, how small or minute it may be, what is that advice to not get you to the point of where, oh my God, I want to commit suicide?
Oh my God.
Go ahead. I think you have to have a well-balanced life. My advice to a lot of women is you have to find yourself a feminist boyfriend, a feminist husband, and understand what that term feminist means. Because I think we're running a company. I've been lucky. I have 2 kids. I have a live-in partner that doesn't demand I have a ring on my finger and help me out with the day-to-day. And you have to delegate. You know, I have a friend that said, Dina, if you could delegate someone breathing for you, yes, you would. Don't feel like you have to do it all. Empower people and trust. Trust the process. God did not bring you this far to make you drown. You don't drown on shore. You drown in the sea or in the ocean. So trust the process.
Yeah, and I think that, and that's where having a relationship with God is so important, and making sure that He's the center of everything, because once He's the center of everything, everything will fall into place. And as hard as, you know, running a business is, you know, like she said, God will not bring you this far to leave you. Like, He's always there with you. And I always tell people to take time for yourself, take time for meditation and to be still, because we're always running. We're always so busy, and we're always praying and talking to God, but sometimes we don't take the time to be still and to listen to God, because He can be talking to us, but we're just, oh, I got to do this, I got to take care of the kids, I got to take them to the activities, I got to do this, and we're not taking that time to be still and just to meditate and just to listen to what He's saying. So if you're, for anyone that's at the verge where they just feel so overwhelmed and God forbid, not to the point where you're, wanting to commit suicide. We have to keep God in our life, and you have to go to church every Sunday. You have to have balance. When I'm not traveling, I go to church every Sunday with my family. We have family days every Sunday that, I'm not traveling, and you have to have that balance. But all in all, keep God first, and as long as He's first, everything else will fall into place.
I'll only add to that, exercising is really important. It's something that I think we all need to make time for. I know as Black women, we care about how our hair looks, and it goes into the thesis of who we are supposed to be, right? The type of hairstyles that we wear, we also feel insecure about whether or not we can get deals and be looked at as professional with those type of hairstyles. So that's a reality on why some of us are actually choosing not to work out, right? That's another form of a tax. But I think we need to take that time. And the last thing I'll say is take time to get off of social media.
Yeah.
So I think,
Big claps over there.
I had a conversation about this earlier. If it's a business, it's business for you, that's great. Figure out a way to create some form of separation for you, because what you're allowing is other people's lives and other people's projections to constantly be a part of your stratosphere all the time. And there will always be somebody doing something that you want to do, being somewhere that you want to go, and you never realize how that can trigger you. And you don't need those triggers when you're not feeling great.
And I want to add, we'd have to check in on each other. To Natalie's point earlier, not just the people who need help, but the people who you think have it all together, the people who nobody checks in on, check in on them.
That's right.
My name is Montina Portis, and I always ask questions around scaling. So 39% of the small businesses in the U.S. are owned by women, but we only make up about 4.2% of the revenue, and only about 2% of women pass the seven-figure mark. What advice can you give specifically to women so that we're scaling, growing, and making more money in our businesses? Thank you.
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I think ultimately you want to grow your company. You want to grow smart. It took me almost 7 years to go from 1 IHOP to 2 IHOP to 3 IHOP. My strategy, I'm not in the restaurant space. I tell people all the time, I'm in a real estate space. I don't like being a tenant. So it makes it harder for me to open. I have so many people calling me every day. I have this really nice space. I want you to open this IHOP. Are you going to condo it out so I can own it? Because I ultimately do believe business is closed. There's two heavy items on your balance sheet. You have your rent and your payroll. Those are the things that make you either full or grow. If I didn't own my very first building my IHOP was in, I don't think I would have been successful. So I think growing is great, but you have to scale your growth. And then also, look at the skill sets of the people around you. Can they handle that growth? Can they handle you going from 1 store to 2 stores? Look at your own capacity and be honest with yourself. Is it time? Because sometimes people can put unrealistic pressures on you. But I think that growth is really based on the person that's going to ride or die under that pressure. Because if it all comes down, there's only one person. Oh, girl, Adina, I have clothes. So it's a very intimate decision. But I do believe, especially we as Black women, I don't believe the figures. I just don't. Because if you look at, we are so entrepreneur. How many of us are doing hair in our basement, doing this, babysitting for someone? I look at us in the Black community as this space that the marketplace just haven't understand yet. And until they catch up, there's this opportunity, like when we open Cornbread. Cornbread is this fast casual concept I just opened in October. And literally, when I opened the restaurant, was just, you know what? I'm in IHOP. I'm selling. It's my IHOP. My IHOPs are the only IHOP that sells soul food. And that fight with them was so hard. And I decided I'm going to open my own soul food restaurant. It's a concept. I'm going to franchise it, and I'm going to take it to the masses. And I said, well, let me just open it and try it. We said we'll do $20,000 a week. When we opened, we did $40,000. Again, you have to know that market, understand there's a space there for it, and just go for, no one is gonna know your neighborhood and your people like you do. Take pride in that. Know that that's what you bring to the table. I can tell you about food in the urban community than anybody sitting behind their computer because I'm on the ground.
The other thing I would add to that is save your money,
Yes.
live within your means. Running $1 million plus business doesn't mean you are a millionaire, which I think a lot of us don't, that's not computing here for whatever reason. And then try to invest in things that are revenue generating, right? So like if you spend $1 here, would you get at least $1 back on that plus more, you know? And figure out ways in which you can build business models for your organization that helps you to compound on that. And identify truly what costs are, and then identify things around those cost centers. Like sometimes people are operating in cost spaces, but what's the revenue that's created by as a result of what they do? Thinking about it from that perspective, right, I think is what's really helpful.
Hi,
Hi.
my name is Tamron Davenport. I am the CEO of Tamron Baxter Inc., doing business as Positive Outlook Beard Care. So my question is kind of for you, Monique. It is very, very, very hard getting mentors and getting assistance and finding stats and just trying to make my way in this space of doing all natural, organic products for Black men. What advice would you give to me for mentorship, for getting information, for getting my product out there to assist our community?
Yeah, so I would say I would recommend, reach out to people. What's the worst they can tell you is no. People send me emails all the time asking for business advice. They send me DMs, and I'll just say, send me an email. Most genuine people, they're going to give you advice. And I mean, if you want to email me, I can give you my email after this as well. And, I can give you any type of advice. But what I would say is when you're going to people and you're asking for advice, make sure that you have something to offer as value as well, too. Because, entrepreneurs, they have people coming at them all the time asking questions. And sometimes it's all about, what can you do for me? Or let me take. But something as simple as, let me take you out for coffee just so I can pick your brain. Like a simple gesture like that, it means a lot to a person like me, because not only am I offering my time to you, but I'm giving you advice that really people have to pay for. And it just shows that you're genuine and you're sincere and you care about this other person as well too. So there has to be value that you can offer as well too. So I would give you that advice when you approach people, to make sure that, let me take you out to dinner, let me offer you something versus what can you do for me. And as far as being in this space, because obviously I have natural and organic hair products, and what works for me is just being genuine and being authentic to my audience, because people, they know, your followers, they know what's real and they know what's fake, and they know when you are really passionate about what you're doing. And I always say, like, nobody can beat you at being you, right? So we all have our unique gifts and we all have our talents, and as long as you operate in those gifts in the space that you're operating in and your talent, your audience is going to attract and be attracted to you as a person, and that's what's going to help them be emotionally connected to you, and that's what's going to make them buy from you.
Right. I actually do the things that you suggested. I guess I should tailor the question as to what type of people did you reach out to help you in the industry?
So honestly, I didn't reach out to really anyone. Like I said earlier, I learned a lot by myself. And when I was able to get some mentorship, it's actually one of my sales brokers that mentors me now. But the way that I was connected to her is through so when we started selling our products, we were on e-commerce, and then we had a lot of boutique beauty supply stores that would buy from us. And it was an African-American beauty supply store that purchased from us. And she saw how quickly the products were flying off the shelf. And she called us and she said, well, hey, I want to connect you with someone. And I think that this person is going to help you and be a mentor to you and help you get into retail. So when she gave me that information, I didn't call her right away because, you know, I was so used to people turning me down and telling me no and not giving me advice, so I didn't reach out to her right away. It took for her to ask me again and say, hey, did you call her? Did you talk to her? And I was like, oh yeah, I do need to call her. Let me reach out to her. But before her, I really had nobody, honestly, to help or to show me anything. I didn't reach out to people because I was always scared that I was going to hear no and not get the help that I need. So that made me more determined and more motivated to find out information for myself. So honestly, I didn't have anyone.
Okay. Thank
Can you
you.
get the next question? Caroline?
I just wanted to add to your question. This question about mentorship, this comes up all the time. And Monique's point I thought was so great. I interviewed Adina for an article that Black Enterprise did on her a few weeks ago, or a few months ago, whatever
Yeah.
it was, or was together. And what I loved was that, can you hear me? Okay, so I asked Adina who her mentor was, and she was like, Oprah is my mentor. I was like, oh snap, okay. Okay, no, she never met Oprah. Right.
She
Right.
never met Oprah, but with a completely straight face, she was like, Oprah is my mentor. She has studied everything about her. She has read everything she's written. She has read every article. If you're in hair care, Black Enterprise alone, we have written about every single Black hair care product, person, founder out there. Don't think that a mentor has to be somebody that you know. Yes, we all need those people, but there is, especially in the information age, there is such a wealth of information, and you do not have to have an ongoing person-to-person relationship with somebody to get every single thing you can possibly get from them. So I just wanted to say that, and fabulous job, and this is one session, but if you come to Women of Power, this is the whole thing.
And can I
From
add
our
one-
Chief Brand Officer of Women of Power.
Can I add one more thing too? And also, when you're out seeking advice and mentorship, the thing is, you know, nothing's gonna come to you easy, right? So you still gotta get out here and you gotta work and you gotta figure out the information for yourself, because I feel that when somebody is always giving you the information and passing it to you, you're not gonna appreciate it. And I feel that that's why I'm so determined and so driven right now, is because I showed myself that I can do it and I was able to get out here and do the work myself. So don't always expect for everybody to tell you all the answers to the test, because you're not gonna appreciate it.
Hi, my name is Veronica Kraft, and I'm from Atlanta. I own Amazingly Uplifted. We're an educational consulting company that focuses on children with autism. A little bit earlier, we discussed being the only woman, many times the only Black woman in that leadership position. Part of the reason why I started my business is because I'm the only Black-owned company that does what I do, but all of the other companies are sustained by primarily Black women and Black families. So my question is my goal is to also produce other leaders so that we can have more Black businesses in the field that I'm in. So how do you nurture other Black women to also come up in the field that you're in when they have that interest?
I think and then I think you probably have something to say. For me, for mentorship, I always tell people it's easier to get to know me when you run alongside me. Meaning, like, if you ask me to stop, I actually don't like going to dinners and coffees, because I don't like to have to get super dressed up just to be there for you, right? You know what I mean?
Right.
I'd rather do a 15-minute conversation with you on the phone, and we talk, and then you keep checking in with me. And that's the way I handle people who mentor me. I give them things that I say that I'm gonna do. I send them notes after my meeting, like, this is what I said I was gonna do. I follow back up with them and tell them, this is what I did as a result after our conversation. The more I take my conversation and their time seriously, the more they're willing to spend time with me, because they feel like they're actually a part of my success. This goes in a way to your point as well, like going to these industry events and getting to be around people. Being a mentor is also about trust. You're asking me for something, but I'm allowing you in my space, right? I'm having conversations with you that could be trustworthy conversations. I'm sharing with you years of my wisdom, right? That people could pay me for, or that people don't know about me. And so I think it's important for people to feel that you're a part of their trusted space, and again, that you're taking yourself seriously. As far as it relates to mentoring another young woman to get into this space, a couple of things I'll say there are, make sure you're solidly in that space, right? And I think there are ways that you can mentor people by giving them opportunities. At Walker's Legacy, we spend money with black and brown women and men all the time because I know how much a past performance means something to people. Even if it was a small little contract that we gave, you could still now say Walker's Legacy was a client of yours. That means something. If there's an opportunity for you to do that with people in your ecosystem and for them to see you succeeding and being, I think that's the key to what they need. They just need to see you.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Right now, they need to see you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Connie Clay, and I'm a Howard alum also. And my question is specifically for Natalie. I'd like to know how you grew Walker's Legacy online and in person. How did you attract women?
You know, the Lord is good. I think we have been able to attract women through authenticity. I think that's been one of the biggest formulas for success for this organization. I think the women who are a part of Walker's Legacy feel at the leadership level, whether engaging with me or not, that we truly want women to succeed, and we're really trying to build a sisterhood. We realized very early on that we couldn't scale unless we started empowering women in their communities to be leaders. I didn't want Walker's Legacy to be predicated off of me, right? Like, I didn't want it to have to be that you always had to have Natalie if you wanted Walker's Legacy. I felt like that actually did us disservice to what we were trying to do. And so we started having events and programs in different parts of the country, and I realized that women were constantly seeking mentorship and information and content, and that's when we went from 30 women in a room to more of a digital platform that provides that kind of information, because it is possible to self-mentor. I mean, that's what I did by reading Madam C.J. Walker's bio, and in my head, she's my mentor, you know what I mean? And everything that we do kind of falls in that space. And then we started working with brands and companies to help them connect to this very important demographic. But it started off so small. And there were so many times that I could have given up on this thing. And that, to me, I tell my team all the time, we cannot fail if we do not give up. And that's how we grew. We didn't give up. Because I've seen things come, and I've seen them go. And I've seen new things come, and seen them go. But sustainability is king when it comes to staying in the game.
Yep. And our last question?
Hello, my name is Mandy Bowman. I'm the founder and CEO of a startup called Official Black Wall Street. And it's actually an app that helps you find black-owned businesses around the country. Now, one of the biggest struggles I have is getting to dispel the stereotype that our businesses are lesser than, or that our customer service isn't as good as other people's. So my question is, how can we go about, from the consumer end and the business owner end, how can we go about dispelling that? Because every time I hear customer service and black-owned business, it's always something bad.
I think a couple of things. I think you have to create this culture. I tell my staff, my team all the time, you're not doing this for yourself. You're doing it to debunk all of the stereotypes about your community, about your race, about what we stand for as a people. If someone walk in here and you service them, you are changing minds and you're changing lives. So I pride my restaurant on really giving good customer service. We don't get it right all the time. We're not robots. But it's about getting right back up whenever we fall. Because I think it's so important to kill that myth. It's a myth. It's not true. Because we're giving good service all of the time. And as far as, you know, this whole thing about, let's stop repeating those languages, those really negative languages. Black women don't support black women. That's not true. Black businesses don't thrive and don't give good service. That's not true. I never repeat that because I'm living it and I'm seeing it. If you wake up in the circumstances that oftentimes the people in our community wake up in every day and you could still wear a smile, you are winning already. So I tell people all the time, until it's like the man in the arena, until you're really in this and you're doing this. And I am inspired and honored by the people that work for me. I had a mother, her son got shot. Her 17-year-old son got killed. And she called me and she said, Dina, I want to come to work because you guys are my family. I feel safe. Now, for that same mother to stand there and say, can I take your order today? She's already an inspiration. Yeah.
Can I add something? In some ways, I think that's a form of illness when we do that.
Yeah.
It's a. When I went to become the president of the Black Chamber of Commerce in Austin, people literally said to me, Natalie, why would you go be the president of that black thing? You're better than that. And I was like, it's almost like, are you good? You right? You okay? You know what I mean? Like, it sounds ill. You know what I mean? Because how could you possibly say that and be black? Like, are you good? You know? And so to me, I don't know that I necessarily even, it's almost like the Matrix. Like I no longer even recognize that move. I stand on stage because of an organization with black in its name, Black Enterprise. You know what I mean? We're all here as a result of this organization. We come from black people. I mean, where are you to me, I kind of counter-challenge that. Like where are you getting this from? Is that what you do? You know, someone said to me, when you say that, anything that you say, it's because you do that, right? Like, oh, you lie. Okay, do you lie? Because you good? Yeah, you must lie. You good? You know? So, I think when it comes to how we communicate about ourselves, and to your point, I'm in the communications media business. We're at a communications media organization.
Words matter.
Words matter. And what you respond to that person with has the potential to change their thought process about themselves. They just haven't been exposed enough. You know what I'm saying? And I feel bad about that. I feel bad for them when they say that.
Yeah, and I just want to add too, like it all goes back to like knowing our history. Like you said, knowing where does that come from. You know, if we go back way back in slavery, we know that it was all written. They want us to be divided as people. They don't want us to get ahead, okay? Because they know that when we stick together, how powerful we can be when we are together as one. So it all starts in our mindset. We have to stop saying that when you get a bad experience with a black-owned business, oh, well, that's why I don't do business with black-owned businesses. We have to stop saying that because that's what they want us to do, right? They want us to stay divided. And if you don't know your history and you don't know where you come from, how can we get ahead? So it all starts with knowing where we come from and sticking together as black people. Stop saying the negative comments about black businesses because we work hard. We have to work much harder to get ahead. So we have to stick together. We have to support one another. So it starts in our mindset.
Didn't I tell you these women were amazing? Please. Thank you.